Hello, Cambly learners. Hi, how are you, you guys? And English students from all over the world, good morning, good evening, and good night. How is everyone doing? Today, we're going to be talking about false cognates and false friends. But before, let's get to know each other a little bit. Where are you tuning in from? I see that we have a lot of viewers and a lot of people that were waiting for us. So thank you so much for subscribing to the channel, for wanting to see these videos. Remember that you can share and like these videos, and we know that you like them, so we can keep on making them. I see that some of you are from Japan, okay, from Bangladesh. Excellent. Several people from Bangladesh. Nice. Very nice to meet you. I see someone from Vietnam. Hello, Vietnam. How is everything going? Where else, you guys? What other countries are you tuning in from? From Sri Lanka. Okay. Okay, interesting. From Sri Lanka. Where else? Do I have anyone from Brazil? Maybe from Spain or Mexico? What about from another country in Asia or another country in Africa? Saudi Arabia. Okay, from Pakistan, I see Gulam. Another person from Japan. It's a pleasure, you guys. I also see Gaurav from India. Very good. And I also see Rafael from Mozambique. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. Excellent. I see other people from Saudi Arabia and from Pakistan and from Nepal. Okay, very good. I see Rafael again from Mozambique. Hi, Rafael. And people from, okay, a lot of people from Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. I also see Amanda or Armanda, I think, sorry, from Greece. Excellent. Welcome to all of you guys. All right, perfect. Team Nigeria, excellent. I see a lot of diversity in the comments, and this is going to be a very interesting class because it's not only about learning words, it's also about understanding how your language is connected to English, because there are some connections, and sometimes these connections can be quite confusing. Okay, so tune in, keep watching, and we're going to explain all that. I see Stefania from Italy. I see someone from India. Time to speak English. Okay. From Oman, another person from Sri Lanka, and from Thailand. That's excellent. Excellent. Okay. So, guys, remember, these sessions are recorded and you can see them either on our Instagram or on our YouTube page. So, remember to like or follow whatever social media you prefer and share this with your friends. The more viewers we have, the more we know that you guys are liking these videos, the more we know that we should keep on making them and keep you happy. Okay. So, if you haven't or if you know someone that isn't able to tune in live now, you can share the link with them so they can watch the full video and no one's going to get lost. Okay. Remember also, if you have to, I don't know, have breakfast, go to the bathroom, or you just want to rewatch, you can rewatch the whole video and you won't miss out on anything. Okay. Who else is here? I see other people from Greece. I see someone from Jamaica, Claudette. Excellent. I see someone from Germany. Nice. Very nice. Excellent. Lilia from Brazil. Hello, Lilia. How are you? How is everything? Okay. So, again, guys, we are going to practice, or rather learn about false cognates and false friends. Many of you have heard of these words, but not everyone exactly knows what it is. Okay, so we're going to start in about 30 seconds. I see some people from Azerbaijan, from Nepal, from Serbia. Okay, Lydia. Very good. Someone from South Africa. Nice, Ivy. Very good. Excellent. Well, hello, you guys. It's a pleasure to have you. Let's go ahead and begin. So, like I said, today we're going to be talking about false friends and false cognates. There are some tricky words in English that you have to be careful with. But before we jump in, we need to understand what a cognate actually is. Now, as you can see, we have a map here, and I'm going to explain that in a little bit. Most of us know that languages have evolved and changed for hundreds and sometimes thousands of years. And through all of these years, sometimes one language slowly changes according to the region. Okay. And after some time, they might actually turn into different languages. That's what this map represents. Okay. Ignoring the continent of America, These are language families. Okay. Blue is Indo-European, yellow is Sino-Tibetan, orange is Niger-Congo Bantu. So these were old, very, very old families of languages that were very, very ancient. Okay. And now they have turned into many different languages. Okay. So sometimes these languages would divide and turn into many different languages. And on other occasions, some cultures or tribes were very close, and instead of separating, their languages mixed into one stronger and more complex language. And here's where it gets interesting. With time, some basic words from old languages transform into new modern words that we use in our languages now, depending on our context and our needs. Okay. But one basic word in an old language could evolve into different words in languages that we use now. So when words share this history, they're cognates. Now, formally, it's called etymological origin. We won't bother with these very formal advanced words, but just so you guys know, words share etymological origin or they share history. Okay. So let's go ahead and keep on going. A false cognate is when words seem to share history, but they don't. Okay. So there are some groups that are confusing, right? Because they seem to share history, they seem to share meaning, but they actually don't. Okay. So these words we have to be very, 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 very careful with. Now, those are false cognates, words that share history. Okay. And they're very easy to see in Romance languages. Romance languages basically now are Spanish, Italian, French, and all the other derivations from these languages. They all come from Roman, which is actually Latin. Okay. That's why they're all called Romance languages. Okay. They share a root, they share a mother language. Okay. And that's why these languages are very, very, very similar. They have a lot of cognates. Okay. They have a lot of shared history, meaning that many of these words can either sound or mean something similar. Okay. Now, we have to be very careful because apart from false cognates, we have false friends. False friends are words in different languages that sound kind of similar. Okay. And when words sound similar, of course, we think that they mean something the same. Now, a false friend doesn't need to share the history of the word, and their meaning is quite different. Just as a fun fact, this term comes from a French book written in the 1920s called False Friends of the Translator. So basically, this means that in many, many languages around the world, there are some words that are similar to English words in their sound or in their history, but they have different meanings and they're easy to confuse. Okay. Sometimes many, many students use them wrong, and I'm going to share a list with you guys of how to avoid them. Okay. The good news is that it doesn't happen so frequently in every language. English is a Western Germanic language that originated in what is now Europe, somewhere around here. Okay. So languages that have history in Europe share more with English than languages from other continents, although it can happen. That's why all of this is in blue. As we know, America was conquered by Europe. So European languages came to this continent, and now in all of the continent, we speak English, Spanish, Portuguese, French, etc. Right? That's why all of this is marked in blue, the same as in Europe. And you can see that the closer we are to Europe, the more blue we have, right? But of course, there are other continents with other colors because they have other families of languages. Okay. And in these families, it's not so common always to have false cognates or false friends. Okay. So the good news is that if your language comes from somewhere that is green or orange or yellow, it probably has less cognates than if you speak a language that is marked in blue. If you live in a country that's marked in blue on this map, you're probably going to have a lot of false cognates. Okay. And if you have a lot of false cognates, you have to be very, 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 very careful to not use them wrong. Okay. So we're going to get into that in a little bit, the juicy part. What are the most common words that confuse our English learners? Like I said, the more important thing here we have to figure out is my language close to English? If you speak any Roman language, as you can see in this map, of course, you're very, very, very close to England. So probably your language has a lot of cognates, and false friends. So these countries have to be extremely careful not to get them mixed up. Okay. Some other countries here, for example, China, do have one or two false cognates, but it's not that common. For example, in China, we have this word, which is pronounced poker. Now, poker means card games, and it sounds a lot like poker, which is a card game. Now, curiously, this is a false cognate, even though it might sound a little bit similar and it refers to something kind of similar, a card game. They actually do not share their history, and it's very easy to see here. China is in bright yellow because it's Sino-Tibetan. That's their language family. And of course, English is very, 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 very different. So let's go ahead and continue. Like I said, there are many, many, many words from Roman languages that are false cognates. This doesn't mean that false cognates only happen in Romance languages. If you speak Turkish, there will be cognates, and false friends. If you speak Arabic, there are some words that are very similar and that you shouldn't confuse. So let's get to that. For example, in Arabic, there are these groups of words. Okay. Now, I know they're small because it's just a small list that I'm going to show you. Okay. And then I'm going to paste it up on the board so it doesn't take up so much space. Okay. For example, heya means she, but it sounds like he. So it's very, very common that Arabic learners will confuse the he and she. And sometimes they will say his party or his car when they mean her, right? We have to be very, very careful with this word. Okay. Heya. Heya. It means she. Okay. But it sounds like he. Now, a word that sounds like whom is hum, but it actually means they or them. So we have to be careful with that. Who is a word that we use to ask a question. Who, we don't know the person. So who is it? Who is coming? But we shouldn't ever confuse it with hum, right? Because that actually means they or them. Okay. Now, what about the word who? Hua. Okay. This is also another word that is very, very, very similar, and it actually means he. Okay. So it's very, 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 very tricky. Okay. That there are similar words in Arabic and there are similar words in English. We have to be very careful not to confuse them. Okay. So let's go ahead and continue. There are many other words, for example, from Turkish that are similar but don't actually mean the same thing. Let's think of agency and acenta. Okay. So, main thing here. Agency sound like acenta, but they don't mean the same thing. Agency is a group, okay, an institution. And acenta is sometimes used to talk about banks, okay. Something that we have to consider, you guys, with all of these is that I'm talking about general families. Unfortunately, we couldn't have time to talk about every language individually because every language has hundreds and sometimes thousands of words that are similar, that mean similar things, or sometimes are very, very different. Okay. So we have to be careful with that. So in Turkish, there are also other words like formation and formación, right? In English, formation is a noun, means a thing that was formed. Whereas in Turkish, formación means a professional, someone who is studying or the education that someone is receiving at a high level. Okay. Also, we have cotton and keten, right? In English, cotton is a puffy plant that is bright white. And keten in Turkish actually means linen, which is not the same as cotton. Cotton and linen are two different materials that many people mix up and they don't understand. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and take a little pause there. Guys, in your language, what words do you normally confuse with English? Are there any similar words? Because like I said, I'm talking about families, but what words in your language are very similar to English that you sometimes confuse? For example, I see Lydia saying, "the" in Serbian means you, second person in the plural. In English, "we" is the first person. Very good, Lydia. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You see, the Serbian is around here in the blue, okay? That means that they share history. So "vi" is the second person in Serbian, and "we" is the first person in the plural, right? So, what other words can you think of, you guys? What other words in your language are similar to English, or which words have similar meanings? I see Abdul Kader saying information and problem. Okay, that's very good. For example, information just means data, and a problem is something that we normally need to fix. Okay. Stefania say parents in Italy means parenti, not genitori. Ah, okay. I think I know what you're talking about. Parenti, I think, means relatives. Genitori means your mom and dad, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So this is another good word of how parents and parenti might sound similar. They might share history, but they don't have the same meaning. So, hi in Urdu. Okay, right, very good. So let's finish off the Turkish ones. Spot and spot. In English, a spot means a small point, and in Turkish, I believe it means light. So they don't have the same meaning, even though they look the same or they sound the same. Okay. Stefania says, yes. Okay. Thank you, Stefania. I wasn't sure about that. I was afraid I might make a mistake. So let's go ahead and continue. Now, like I said, even in Turkish and in Arabic that aren't very similar to English, there are some sounds that are similar. Okay. This doesn't mean that all of them are the same or that Arabic is the same in all the countries it is spoken. Arabic, for example, has many different dialects. It has dozens of dialects. And of course, in different places, it has different meanings. Okay. In some places, an Arabic word can be polite, and in other countries, an Arabic word might be not so polite, for example. And the same thing happens with Spanish, because Spanish has so many different dialects. Something that might sound correct in one country, like Mexico, might sound offensive in Argentina, for example. Okay. Keten is linen in Turkish. Very good, Serdar. That is exactly what I was saying. So cotton and keten sound similar. They look similar, but they're not similar. These are either a false cognate or a false friend. And these are the words that we have to be careful with. So, for example, Serdar says cotton is pamuk in Turkish. Very good. Cotton and pamuk do not sound similar. They are very different. So many times students might confuse keten and cotton. Okay. Rafael says resumo in Portuguese. Very good. Resume means to continue, and resumo means summary. Excellent, Rafael. Thank you so much. So let's go ahead and continue. Like I said, even in languages that are not so close to English on the map, do have a lot of words that are very similar. Something that we have to be careful with Turkish, for example, is that Turkish has a lot of influence from France. There are many, many words that are similar in French and in Turkish. So, precisely because of this, it might be very, very confusing. Now, let's go to actual French. French has a lot of closeness with Turkish, and there are many words in French that might sound similar. So, let's go ahead and do those. For example, attend and attendre mean so different things. To attend in English means to go, and attendre in French means to wait. Okay, so we see that it's actually nothing similar. The meaning is not at all similar. Okay. Next we have bras and bras. So we see that it's actually the same exact spelling. But in English, a bra is a piece of underwear for women, and in French, bras are the arms, right? So of course they look similar, but they're not similar in the meaning. I also see Stefania saying in Italy, freddo means cold, and caldo is hot. So caldo and cold might sound similar, but they're actually completely different in their meaning. Thank you, Stefania. Okay, so let's go with another one. Journey and journée, right? A journey in English is a trip, something that we travel, right? Something that is like an adventure, okay? That is a journey, a trip, something like that. And in French, journée is a day or a segment of time, right? So we see that they look similar, but they do not mean anything similar at all. They are very, very different. So the point here that you guys might be getting to, that you're starting to understand, is that words can sound similar, but they do not mean the same thing. Okay? And that is what is tricky. Every time we see a word in English that sounds a little bit similar to our language, we have to be extremely careful with it. Do not trust words that look or sound similar. That is exactly why we call them false friends, or sometimes false cognates. They are there and they are confusing. If you do not know the meaning of the word 100% in English, even though it might sound like your language, be careful. Avoid using it until you really, really understand. You can ask a teacher, you can ask a dictionary, or you can even ask Google. But make sure with these words. Now, of course, in Europe, like I said, these languages share a lot. So that's why it's very easy to find false cognates in French, the same as with Spanish or Portuguese. For example, in Portuguese and Spanish, I have many students that say actually or actual when they mean current. Okay, let me show you guys from up close. So actually or actual and actualmente or actuellement or actual do not mean the same thing. They have very, very, very different meanings. In English, actually means an emphasis on what is real, and actualmente means current, something that is happening now. So we shouldn't use actually, we should use current. Okay. Let's think of another one. You guys, what other words in your languages are kind of similar in English or have confusing meanings? I see that Urdu is different from English. Gulam, okay, exactly. Now, Urdu, I believe, is Niger Congo, okay, or Afro-Asiatic, meaning that if you see on the map, you're somewhere around here. So you're actually not so close to English. That is why your language is not so similar. I see Huriye Maleki says loot in English means to plunder. In Kurdish, it means nose. Right, very good. So that's a false friend. In Spanish, there are a lot of examples of that. Say, David, exactly, like actually, actuellement. So, David, what words can you think of in Spanish that sound similar in English, but are not actually the same meaning? For example, I can think of record and recordar. Basically, to record something means to film something on your phone, whether it's audio or video, and recordar in Spanish means to remember, something that I know from the past. Okay? Like I said, there are a lot of these that we have to be very careful with. There is also a very, very common one, which is to contract. Many students say, hey, I want a company to contract me. And that's not exactly right. The contract is the piece of paper that you sign when you're getting a new job. And it's not the same in Spanish or in Portuguese. Okay? Contratar means the verb to hire in English. So if you want to say that you're getting a new job or you're paying somebody to do a job, you should say hire, not contract. We don't contract people. That's incorrect. We hire them, even though it's very similar in Spanish or in Portuguese. Okay. What other thing? Let's think of this one. Very, very funny sometimes and very, very common. Embarrassing and embarazado. Embarrassing in English means something that feels kind of uncomfortable, right? Something that you're not okay with in a social situation. For example, and embarazado in English means pregnant. So a woman who is pregnant, we can say in Spanish, una mujer embarazada, right? So even though they sound very similar, they have totally, totally, totally different meanings. I see that one of our students says shine and shy. Okay, perfect. Amelia Costa says in France, coin and corner. Okay, very, very good. David Garcia says realize and realizar. Very, 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 very good. Realize and realizar. Excellent, David. That's exactly what I was talking about. To realize something is to get some new information, to understand something, and realizar means to do something. Okay? So they sound similar, completely different meanings. We always, always, always have to be careful with these kinds of words. The more similar it is, of course, maybe it has a similar or the same meaning, but we should always, always double check. If there is a word in English and in your language that sounds similar, don't assume right away that it has the same meaning. You should always, always distrust these words. They're false friends, remember, so they don't actually mean what you think they might mean. Okay. We also have lectura, says David. Very good. Approve, aprobar. Excellent. To approve means to say that something is good. And sometimes in Spanish, aprobar means to pass, like an exam. Aprobar un examen. Very, 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 very good. Excellent. Ugly and ugly. Okay. Jyoti Tapa. Thank you so much. Ugly is, of course, an adjective that means someone is not pretty, not beautiful. And I see that ugly means tall. Luck, says Lydia, in Serbian means easy. Exactly, exactly, exactly. Very good. So you see, guys, many of your languages have words that sound the same in English, but they do not mean the same thing. And these are the words that we have to be extremely careful with. Like David was saying, to realize and realizar, right? Very different meaning. To realize is to understand something. Realizar is to do in Spanish or in Portuguese. Okay. And speaking of Portuguese, there are some other groups of words here that I wrote down that are also kind of confusing. For example, carpet and carpeta. A carpet in English is what we put on the floor to decorate it, to make it softer. It's like a soft fabric that we put on the floor. Okay? In Spanish, in Portuguese, probably in French as well, carpeta means a folder. Okay? So it's sometimes very, very different. Now, again, you guys, I'm talking about general language. Each language has many dialects, and different dialects have their own different meanings. And that is exactly why it's so important to learn about the history of English or the history of your own language, to know that sometimes words that are used in your city, in your town, by your family, do not always mean the same thing in a different region or in a different language in a different country. Okay, I see a lot of people now thinking of all of these false cognates. Very, very, very good, you guys. So I see Mudassar saying jute and jute. Okay, a jute is an object, a tool, and jute is a lie in Hindi. Very, very, very good. So obviously, we don't jute to somebody, we lie to somebody. Very, very different. So, what other things? We can think in Portuguese, injury and injuria. Now, an injury is when we hurt ourselves, when we get a cut, a broken bone, something happens, an accident causes an injury. However, in Portuguese, injuria, I believe, means insult or lie, something like that, something negative, right? So, of course, both things might be negative, and that's why maybe they share some history, but they share not the meaning. They don't share the meaning, sorry. Okay. So, whether they're cognates or not, they are false friends. Guys, something that I want to mention that might not have been clear in the beginning is that false friends and false cognates are not exactly the same thing. Okay. But it doesn't matter. If a word is a false cognate or a false friend, they're both tricky to use and they're both confusing. So whether it's a false cognate or a false friend, it doesn't really matter if we can classify it personally, individually, because there are many, right? What is most important is that we at least understand that if the word is similar, it doesn't always mean the same thing. Okay, so whether it's a false cognate or a false friend, be careful with these words. Let's think of notice and noticia. To notice something in English means to see something, to understand that there is something there, right? And in Portuguese and in Spanish as well, noticia means the news. Okay, so obviously a different meaning. Now, guys, before we go, let me remind you that we have a promo code for all of the new Cambly students that want to take classes about grammar, pronunciation, vocabulary. We're going to give that away in just a few moments. Okay? But stay tuned and remember to share this video with your friends. If it was confusing, if it was difficult, you can rewatch it in a few minutes and you can share it with anybody that is interested in the history of languages or how their own language influences English or how it can be confusing. Okay? So, I see Rafael saying injuria means offense in Portuguese. Exactly. It's like an insult. Very, very good. And what about push and puxar? Push in English means to use force to move something like that. And in Portuguese, it actually means to bring something closer, to pull. Okay, Pull. So, of course, they seem similar, but they mean something completely different. Remember, guys, stay tuned for the promo code that I'm going to give in a few moments. But in the meantime, share it with your friends, like and subscribe to the channel, follow the Instagram, and you tell me what false cognates you can think of in your language. Remember, we're doing false friends and false cognates. All of these are very, very tricky, and there are hundreds and thousands of words. Okay, so I see people saying Rafael injury, wounded person, and injuria in Portuguese means offense. Very good. I had already read that one. Okay. Notícia in Portuguese means news. Exactly what I was saying right now. I say ritu, saying approve and aprovar. Exactly. The ones that we were mentioning here, somewhere around here. And what about Mohammed saying Kurdi leia? Okay. Very, very good. We already talked about what Jyoti said. Ugly means something that's not nice in English. Agli means tall in their language. So very, very good. Saman Syed says cafe and coffee. Okay, very good. So in English, a cafe is a place and coffee is the actual drink. And in other languages, cafe is the coffee, the place, or even the color. Okay. I see Agamemnon saying in Portuguese, push means empurrar. Okay, so empurrar is Portuguese for push, whereas puxar, as Rafael tells us, and that we have here, is pull. Very, very good. So you guys, before I let you go, before we answer any more questions, I want to share with you this promo code. Okay? Go live. If you're not a subscriber on Cambly, you can use this promo code to get a really, really nice discount. Subscribe, and that way you're going to be able to talk to many of us. Okay? Many tutors that have different specialties, that have different areas of expertise, and that can help you with preparing for your exam. Sorry, that can help you preparing for your exams, for your pronunciation practice, for many, many things that you might need. Okay, there we go. Go live. Okay, I think you guys can see that. So, go live. Remember, guys, if you're not a subscriber of Cambly yet, use this promo code to get a very, very good discount so you can talk to tutors like me, like the other perfect Cambly tutors that have given Cambly lives, that we can teach you grammar, we can teach you pronunciation, we can teach you vocabulary, we can teach you so many different things. Okay? Use this promo code, you're going to get a nice discount. And if you're already a user on Cambly, if you're already a student, you can take classes with me, you can search for it in the link below, or you can take classes with many, many other excellent, excellent tutors that some of us specialize in grammar, some in vocabulary, some in pronunciation, some in IELTS or TOEFL preparation. And remember, guys, check out the YouTube channel. There are a lot of excellent, excellent resources around here that you can use to have almost a full-on class. Okay? So, guys, thank you so much for listening in on this lesson. Remember to subscribe, to like the video, to go to the Instagram and follow us also there. All of this video will be available to rewatch again and again and again, as many times as you want or as many times as you need. Okay? So that way you can practice and learn. And in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. We will end it here. Until next time, you guys, it was a big pleasure, and thank you for participating. Okay? So bye-bye, you guys. See you. Hope to see you soon. Hope to see you in class. Okay? And in the meantime, take care. Be safe. Okay?